Just ahead on American Black Journal, a spike in racist incidents following Donald Trump's election as president. The head of the Michigan Civil Rights Department is here to talk about it. Plus, the University of Michigan appoints its first chief diversity officer, and he's my guest today as well. You don't want to miss these conversations. American Black Journal starts now.
American Black Journal is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first.
How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. The election of Donald Trump as the nation's next president has prompted a series of protests across the country by citizens who fear that their civil and human rights might be threatened under his leadership. Several racist and anti-religious incidents also have occurred, including reports of harassment in local schools and colleges. As a result, the Michigan Department of Civil Rights is urging schools to report incidents of bias and intimidation. Joining me now is the department's executive director, Augustin Arbelow. Thank you for being here on
Thank you, Stephen.
American Black Journal.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, obviously this is a very unfortunate set of circumstances.
Absolutely.
You know, a presidential election is supposed to be a reason for us to take, I guess, solace in the process, and the peaceful transference of power. We're seeing just the opposite, I think, in too many instances right now.
Well, what we're seeing is that incidents that have increased somewhat, we are monitoring at different levels. We track our contacts that are made to our intake service center. And what does that mean? Very simply, what that means is people who feel that they're being discriminated against may be calling our office, our phone number, and they talk to our specialists, our intake specialists. We did see an increase the Monday following the election of President-elect Trump. Compared to the previous Monday, we saw an increase. Then what we are we are monitoring, because it's difficult to totally track incidents around the state through our community and public affairs outreach division, which that division is dealing with people in the field. They're dealing in the community settings, schools, companies, other organizations. What we have seen has been an increase in those kinds of incidents that have been taking place. I can tell you that since the election of the new president, we have been monitoring approximately 26 incidents.
All over the state?
And all over the state. Now, comparing that to the prior year, we typically would receive in a 52-week period approximately 6 to maybe 9 incidents taking place.
So a lot more than that. I mean,
there has been in a span of a week.
Yeah. And talk about what these incidents look like. I mean, I imagine there's a range.
Well, they are. What's interesting, and of course it's preliminary, what we're noticing has been 2 groups that are reporting incidents. One is the Latino Hispanic community, and the other is the Arab American Muslim community are facing encounters. So those are the 2 primary groups that are feeling the heat during this period of time.
Right. Well, 2 groups that Donald Trump targeted with his rhetoric during the campaign.
Well, you cannot deny that when there is talk about building the wall, that's a code for undocumented Latinos coming across the border.
Sure.
And then if you talk about terrorists and closing the doors, you're targeting Muslims, Arabs.
Yeah, yeah.
So those are definite code words, and that has created, I think, a sense of anxiety, uncertainty, and then in bold other fringes to feel like they have the right to speak out, to encounter an individual of Arab or Latino background and say, make certain comments that might be derogatory.
I mean, the gross unfairness here, of course, is that all of the people in these communities, whether they are terrorists or whether they are undocumented immigrants, wind up being at risk for this kind of backlash. The sort of indiscriminate nature of it is what I think people are fearing, that it's their identification in those groups that makes them the target.
Well, I like to say this, and I like to say very strongly, that this country is built on a system of laws. We do not tolerate conduct that serves to harass, bully, result in destruction of property, intimidation. We will deal with that, and such conduct is not acceptable anywhere.
Right.
And the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, if a complaint is filed based on those claims, we will investigate fully.
Yeah.
But more importantly, what's needed, more importantly, and I have to say this, Stephen, we need to educate. We need to calm down, and we need to take a tempered view as to what's taking place. Yes, we realize that the elections were heated. The whole process was very heated, and there are feelings on both sides. But we have democratic values. This country is built on a strong foundation.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you can do at the Michigan Department of Civil Rights to try to combat this?
Well, we've done a number of things. One is we've partnered with the Michigan Department of Education in issuing a joint letter that has gone out to all the schools, the media. That's very importantly condemning intolerable conduct in the schools, asking the schools, number one, to review their harassment, anti-bullying policy. They want to be proactive.
Right.
Two, we are asking them, the principals, the superintendents, to watch for their school attendance, to watch the behavior of students, and to also monitor social media, outside events that are taking place. Students are very impressionable. They will follow what they may see. And so what we need at this point is to create a safe space, have some dialogue, and bring people from all sides to talk. And through dialogue, I think we can improve that process. The other thing that we're doing at the Michigan Department of Civil Rights has been promoting our Relentless Tour. Anthony Ayani, who's a former MSU player, has seen and talked before over 44,000 students in the past 12 months, talking about bullying, talking about inclusion. And so I think that's very important. Yeah. And lastly, what we're doing is our community outreach is meeting quietly with various schools, with various community-based organizations, and educating them and talking about their rights, what they can do, and how we can stay ahead of any incident that could blow up into a crisis.
Yeah, yeah. That dialogue piece of that is, I think, one of the important long-term solutions, right? As you said, we've had this really heated period of dialogue during the campaign. Now we sort of need a more reasonable tone, I think, to sort of envelop that dialogue, and to be able to say the things that are actually on our minds to each other without shouting them and without the kind of harassment that we're now seeing.
I think you're absolutely right, Stephen. We need that. If you get us all together, we probably won't agree on a lot of things, but what we can do is create an environment where we can have that constructive dialogue and we can talk about it without getting so emotional and tied up that we lose what you're saying, or you lose hearing what I'm saying, and that's important in today's environment. And I think we can do that, but I do think we have to be open to hearing some uncomfortable things.
Sure, sure. The other piece of this that I think is sort of hanging out there is leadership, and leadership at all levels of government. I've been a little concerned that I haven't heard some of the things that I might want to hear, for instance, from Governor Snyder about the rise in these incidents, the unacceptability of it, and what the sort of path forward might look like in terms of that kind of dialogue.
Well, you know, I can't speak for the governor,
Sure.
and I won't speak for the governor because I'm sure he can speak very well for himself.
Sure.
But I do believe that he's very supportive of what the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, and I want to say to you, Stephen, last Thursday, within a couple of days of the elections, the results, we began to hear these incidents quickly. The Michigan Department of Civil Rights issued a press release way ahead of this incident. So in that regard, I do believe that the governor is being proactive, and he's being proactive through allowing the Department of Civil Rights to take a leadership role in this whole process.
Yeah. Okay. Good luck with all the work there. There's a lot of it to do.
There is.
And thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. All right, coming up next on American Black Journal, University of Michigan takes a big step toward increasing diversity on campus. But first, here's a look at some important moments in Detroit's Black history.
I'm Ken Coleman with a look back at African American life in Detroit. This week in 1964, Marvin Gaye performed Can I Get a Witness on the TV show Ready, Steady, Go.
Can I get a witness? Can I get a witness? I want a witness.
In 1978, Lou Whitaker, Detroit Tigers' second baseman, won American League Rookie of the Year honors. And in 1977, boxer Thomas Hearns scored a win in his first pro bout. These are significant events this week in Detroit's Black history, taken from the book On This Day, African American Life in Detroit.
There's a renewed effort at the University of Michigan to promote diversity and inclusion on the Ann Arbor campus. The university just announced an $85 million plan designed to increase minority enrollment and to make learning more inclusive and effective for diverse groups of students. The 5-year plan will be overseen by the university's first Chief Diversity Officer, Robert Sellers. I'd like to welcome Rob back to American Black Journal.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here.
The last time you were here, we were talking about your history, which I think is a really interesting part of this story. You were a student at the University of Michigan. I believe you were a grad student when I was an undergrad,
yes.
Which was a pretty tumultuous time on campus. There was a lot of demonstration protests by black students in particular who were concerned about the environment on campus, about the issue of diversity, the numbers then, and how they could be bigger. My memory is that the late 1980s, early 1990s was the largest presence for minority students on campus. Well, now you take this job at a time when those numbers are maybe some of the smallest we've seen.
Well, so I would just disagree with you a little bit in terms of minority students. So
right.
It was at that time the largest by far minority a group of minority students were African Americans.
Yeah.
There was a very small number of Latinx students,
right.
And a relatively small number in terms of Asian American students. What we've seen over time is those numbers have increased in ways that the African American student numbers have decreased, decreased and then have remained relatively stable post Proposition 2.
Right. Proposition 2, of course, is the provision of our Constitution that now prohibits the university and other public institutions from using race as a factor in their decision making, and it would include admissions. How much of what we've seen in terms of the number drop among African American students has to do with that versus the university maybe not acting as aggressively as it could to counter it?
Well, I think it's been a number of different things. So part of it, there is no doubt that Prop 2 hurt us with African American students. Part of that, in fact, we began to see that even before the Supreme Court ruling. The number of applications from African Americans actually went down. I think there was a mistaken sense that the university was actually in support of the end of affirmative action, which was exactly the opposite.
Right, right.
The other thing that has happened is that, unfortunately, issues with regards to our primary source of students over the years, African American students over the years, Detroit, the K-12 system has had some difficulties over that time. And at the same point in time, I think we as the university didn't do enough. And I think what we are trying to do now is to sort of stop worrying about the factors that we can't control and sort of to go all in and do everything that we can to give everybody an opportunity at the university.
Which is, of course, where you come in, right? This new job, this new effort. Talk about some of the things that you see as real opportunities for the university to try to take advantage of to move the numbers in a different direction.
Well, one program that I'm really excited about is our Wolverine Pathways program, which is a program where we're currently in Southfield and Ypsilanti with plans to come to Detroit in fall of 17. And this is a program where we identify talented students in the 7th grade. There's also a smaller entry point at the 10th grade. Provide them with supplemental educational experiences on Sundays and after schools and through the summer. And working also with parents to talk about what it's like to be at the University of Michigan, what should parents do in terms of supporting their kids. Also having the parents themselves work together to help support the program. Working with local teachers in each of those districts to deliver the curricula that we're providing. And then those kids who complete the program, who participate fully within the program, who then apply and are admitted to the university, are guaranteed 4 years of tuition support, as well as all other financial aid that they would be eligible. So I see this program as not only an opportunity in terms of having some impacts in our broader community, but it's very much a recruitment program. My goal is to get every single one of those kids to come to the University of Michigan. To me, that's what we ultimately want.
Let's talk about the climate on campus, not just for black kids, but for all kids. Of course, this week, we've seen some tensions rear their heads about the election itself, and we've seen some incidents where conservative students thought they were being marginalized by some things that the president said, but you've also had minority students talk about open harassment that they've had to deal with in terms of the backlash from the election. How much does that climate need sort of an attention to try to make things better for everybody who goes to school?
Oh, climate is critical. It's not only critical in terms of our recruitment efforts, but more importantly, it's critical in terms of our ultimate mission, which is to educate our students and all of our students. I feel like this is a very difficult and complex time. There are a lot of issues that are swirling around that are getting intertwined and confused.
They all get balled up
and they
together,
get all
right?
balled up together, exactly. So, for instance, issues of harassment and threats of physical violence. There's absolutely no place for that, regardless of the context. We don't tolerate that. That's not what we're about at the University of Michigan.
Yeah.
At the same point in time, the question of diversity of political thought is absolutely something that we care about. That is something that we're striving for. We believe fundamentally different perspectives, whether it's a function of one's lived experiences or different political ideologies, are all important for us to end up having the strongest education possible and being able to do our part in serving the university. Yeah. But those two things, you can't have that in the context of harassment and in the context of fear, real fear. Yeah. And so we've got to find ways to make sure that everyone understands that we can do both. And by doing both, it no way minimizes the importance of the other.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is really interesting is that feeling among, say, conservative students that they are victimized, quote unquote, which I think if you're a minority student, it comes across as a little offensive because the minority students are actually victimized in ways that those students probably can't relate to. And it's hard to, I guess it's hard for you guys to bridge that gap. I mean, there is a perception gap there that's important.
Well, and I think that's the key is if we can move a bit beyond our individual feelings, let's examine what is physical threats of physical harm, and let's deal with that. Let's deal with feelings of social identity threat. We need to find ways to deal with that. And the way you deal with one is not the same way that you deal with the other. And again, I want to go back to this point. When dealing with one does not mean that you don't care about the other, or we can't do the other. In fact, that we're trying to do the other. I'm very confident in our ability to do both. But in a time like this, with so much passion and fear, and the fear is rooted in real policy possibilities and impacts on individuals' lives, that it's very hard to do things that we normally could do quite well.
Let's talk about the numbers and the numbers going into the future. How feasible do you think it is for the work that you're doing to move those numbers back? And I know at Michigan we've already seen a little bit of a turn back toward higher presence of black students, but should we expect to see those numbers go back, for instance, to when you and I were on campus?
Well, I hope that we do. I mean, my goal, that's what I get up in the morning working to do. I am optimistic. I believe that there are ways. And the main thing that gives me that belief is that, as our president has often said, that while talent is spread equally throughout everywhere, opportunity isn't. And so if we can make sure that we provide opportunity, and that opportunity also means opportunity for the necessary preparation for students, for all students to come to the university, that then naturally the university will look more diverse and will represent that diversity that's
and you can do it, you feel like you can do that without the tool of affirmative action. I mean, you don't have a choice.
Well, I was going to say, it doesn't. It does. In some ways, you know, there's no use crying over spilled milk in that context.
Probably not.
But we're, you know, again, we like to refer to ourselves as the leaders and best, and I have a great deal of confidence in the university taking on big issues, and I'm also very proud of our students and our students' commitment towards these issues. And so, with all of that, I'm ready to take this on.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck to you. At my alma mater, it's important.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. We're looking for your help as well.
That's right. Absolutely. All right. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Finally, all of us here at American Black Journal and Detroit Public Television send our condolences to the family and friends of longtime PBS journalist Gwen Ifill, who passed away after a battle with cancer. Ifill was the host of Washington Week and co-anchor of PBS NewsHour. She was praised by many in the industry for her journalistic integrity and her fairness. Prior to joining PBS, Ifill worked at NBC News, the New York Times, and the Washington Post. Gwen Ifill was 61 years old. That's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org, and you can always connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time.
American Black Journal is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first.
How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.